Good morning. Welcome to Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket, George DeJohn Train Station Fitness Show. It's 7:01 in the morning, and I've got a question for you. Actually, first I'll share a story with you, and I'll give you a question. There was a child who weighed over 200 pounds, and it was in the third grade. He was taken from his parents in an intense debate about whose fault it was and what was going on with him. Child Protective Services took this child away, saying that the parents were negligent. It was their fault that this child was 200 pounds in third grade. I think if anybody listening to the show and this story today saw this child, even myself, they would look at the child and want to beat the crap out of the parents. So, on one hand, you would agree with what's going on with what you saw. On the other hand, the long story short is the child was given back to the parents. Because after they did extensive studies and the child wound up being traumatized, to say the least, being taken from his parents, it showed that the child had a predisposition to being obese. And there was a condition that the parents didn't know about, couldn't know about, and a doctor who was a highly qualified doctor, supposedly, is the one who said this child should be taken away without having been fully tested. What am I getting at? Whose fault is it? When we're talking about a condition, and we're talking about a specific condition today, one that has to deal with your thyroid, low thyroid, high thyroid, it's called hyper or hypo. We're talking about thyroid conditions today. Do you have a thyroid condition? It doesn't mean you have to be over fat to have a thyroid condition. What are the signs and symptoms of a low thyroid? Saddlebags, being tired. What are saddlebags? Women usually deal with them, not usually men. It comes in different symptoms for men. But before you diagnose yourself, before you take a supplement because your friend said, take this, it helped me lose weight, or do this exercise, it helped me, why not find a qualified professional to test you first? Now, I don't know hardly anything about this topic. I know a little bit about it, enough to get me in trouble if I were to talk about it on the air. So I've got Dr. Webster in the studio, and I've got Dr. Nicole Sharp in the studio, which you could have said in the microphone. That's totally fine. So good morning. Good to see you guys.
Good morning.
Hey, George. And Nicole, you're going to have to speak up much more than that so people can hear you. Last time you were on the show, you have really good commentary, and people did not hear you as much as they wanted to. Nicole, I've got a stat for you, but you're not aware of. You ready?
I'm ready.
The average Thanksgiving meal has 3,000 calories and 229 grams of fat. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
I said they underate.
You said they underate? Yeah. I think I had my 3/4 of a pumpkin pie, and I had tons of turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy, and I loved it. What I wrote on Facebook, if you find me on Facebook, just go to George DeJohn, and I'll just request me and I'll accept you, is you can see some of the things I talk about. I'll throw some of these stats out there, but one of the things I talked about also is exercising before you have your meal that day, so you don't have to worry about the guilt and thinking that you're going to do it afterward. Nobody does it afterward. And if you do exercise after Thanksgiving meal, you're either a professional athlete or you're an obsessive compulsive person. Right. That's my true opinion, professional opinion. I mean that.
And you digest your food better if you exercise before.
Right.
Well.
So one of the things we're talking about today that affects 27 million Americans, low thyroid. You say, George, come on, out of 320 million people, 27 million might not be a whole lot. You might be a person who is affected with it, but you might not have the full-blown symptoms of it. What are the symptoms? What are the signs? We'll find out with Dr. Nicole Sharp and also Dr. Jeremy Webster coming up next. 7:05 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. 7:12 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. George DeJohn Train Station Fitness Show. On the show with me today is Dr. Jeremy Webster. He's going to be talking about low thyroid conditions, men and women. It's not just women. Often people think that it's women who have thyroid issues. That's not true. Also, Dr. Nicole Sharp is here. In 2004, a study in the journal Circulation found that heart-related deaths increased 5% during the holidays. You say, George, this is the holiday season. Why are you talking about thyroids? Well, because you are, not that you may, not that you can, you are doing something that's contributing to being less healthy, whatever less healthy is for your body, during the holiday season. You say, well, George, I eat perfectly. Well, then you're not a person who should listen to this show. I don't even eat perfectly. And when I eat a whole pumpkin pie, that's not something that contributes to my health. It takes away from my health, so I have to compensate for it. We're talking today about 27 million people in the United States who are affected by low thyroid condition, or actually just thyroid conditions will blanket it. What does that mean? Dr. Webster, if we're talking about thyroid conditions, first, before we talk about contributing factors, what are the signs of thyroid? Low thyroid in particular.
Yeah, low thyroid, you're going to have a lot of things related to energy production. So the first thing, obviously, you're probably going to have weight gain, or it's going to be very difficult for you to lose those extra pounds. But you're going to have all the other things associated with energy. You're going to have depression, basically not able to make energy in the brain. You're going to have fatigue over your all over your entire body. Constipation, oftentimes dry skin, dry hair.
Now, before you go further, I'm going to take the other side of this today. Somebody else listening. Webster, Dijon, Sharp, let me tell you something. Yeah, I've got a pot belly on me. I lost my job and I'm not feeling good, so I'm a little depressed over it, or I had a divorce or whatever, or things aren't going great in my life. I've always had dry skin. I don't sweat. Well, I really never did sweat. Women always say that one. And constipation, well, I didn't eat the right food, so I'm constipated. That doesn't mean I've got a thyroid condition. It's the holidays. Come on.
Right. You could have 6 different signs, all from 6 different possible conditions, or deficiencies, or poor diet, or poor lifestyle choices that you make, and not have a thyroid condition. I'll give you that. But you also might have a thyroid condition. We know, like I said, 10% of the American population right now has thyroid disease, 90% of which are autoimmune thyroid disease. The great thing about this is it is preventable. It's preventable. It's to a certain extent reversible once you get it, but it's absolutely preventable before you get it.
Now, what do you now you're intriguing me. What do you mean to a certain extent? I think especially for women listening, I'm always told I have low thyroid. I'm on thyroid medication. Synthroid, I believe, is one of them, right?
Synthroid.
Right?
Synthetic thyroid.
Yeah, Synthroid. And what do you mean I can't reverse it? Does that mean I'll continually have all these symptoms?
It depends what type of thyroid problem you have,
and how far along it's.
Yeah, but some of them are absolutely reversible, no matter how long you've had them. It might take you longer to, the longer you've had it, it might take longer to reverse it. But some of the things can be completely reversible. Sometimes, George, and we're going to get more into all the different causes and the way you test and fix all these things. But sometimes it's purely just something as easy as a magnesium deficiency or an iron deficiency. Those two things could cause true hypothyroid, the type of hypothyroid that the medical doctors test for.
And now, what is hypothyroid?
Low thyroid.
What is hyperthyroid?
Hyperthyroid is high.
Nice.
High. And
Very easy.
It's when your thyroid is ramping up or revving up too high, and you're going to have a whole different set of symptoms with hyperthyroid.
Right.
Agitation. Your hair tends to be more falling out rather than being dry. Sometimes you get bug eyes.
So men who are bald are hyperthyroid?
Not in all cases, no. But
I was actually being funny. You were serious.
Okay.
Well, you were serious.
Well, in some cases, yeah. If you have hyperthyroid, your hair is going to tend to fall out more.
Does that mean they're also really thin and can't keep weight on?
In some cases, but there's also
the beginning stages, I think, of hyperthyroid are that
exactly.
You can get to hypothyroid from being excessively hyperthyroid over time.
And it's weird, but what happens is your hyperthyroid, you have too much hormone, and what happens is your body basically shuts off its response, and then you start getting all the symptoms of low thyroid when in fact you have high thyroid, technically. But you still have all the symptoms, like I said, the low energy, the weight gain, and you think,
all right, so weight
I've
gain,
got to be.
Where is weight gain? Is there a particular place for men for low thyroid and a particular place for women, or a most common case for them to gain weight?
It's going to be your typical. It's going to be wherever that person typically would gain weight, no matter what. So women as a whole, they're going to gain it around their thighs. Men are going to tend to gain it in their belly.
Yeah, we're real lucky.
Someone, nutritionist that we're all familiar with, Jim Judd, said, today, the stats show that 80% of all young women have hypothyroid, and that's the reason they've got saddlebags.
80%?
80% of all young women. Wow. Now, let's take a step back and look at the diet today versus 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Even 30 years ago, we still had crappy food. But we didn't have so much crappy food and get to a point today where the Obama administration said that ketchup should be or may be considered a vegetable. Number one, we all know
if you know what the stats, basically.
Yeah. We all know, and if you don't know this, I'll share it with you, but I'm assuming you know, that you could never make tomato a vegetable because it's a fruit, you idiot.
Right.
Second of all, how much sugar is in this ketchup?
Exactly. High fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, thank you. So how do you consider that a vegetable, you idiot? So
And
does that mean when I go have a hamburger that I don't put ketchup on it? Absolutely not. But what we've got today, the condition that we're doing, alcohol's been around for many, many years. So it's not like alcohol did it.
Right.
Fried food been around many years. It's not like fried food did it. However, we've got all the packaged foods that do play a role on our hormones. But people don't realize that our body is a chemical factory. And we're playing a role. So now when you add all of these other things in, all of these other components, you think, it's like, what was it a long time ago? People said, don't eat fat, because fat's bad. We actually know fat's really good for
Right.
you.
They took the coconut oil out of the popcorn,
Yeah.
replaced it with vegetable oil.
Well, the coconut oil that was in the popcorn was actually processed coconut oil, so it wasn't healthy for you. It was
In some
hydrogenated.
cases, in some cases they were using palm oil. But,
Right.
But better than pure vegetable oil, which
Sure.
is soybean oil.
Sure.
It's all going to be trans fat at that
Yeah.
point.
And I guess what I'm getting at is if you take out the things that are really not so bad for you, but you're keeping all the other things in, then you're making your condition worse.
Sure.
And you think it's the norm or it's normal because it is the norm.
Right.
So when someone goes to turn your world upside down and take some things out, and so when you say, hold on, what am I supposed to eat? Well, you didn't know any different because your parents didn't know any different.
Right.
And it's really, really frustrating to a healthcare professional to share this with people.
Yeah, some people don't understand that food can possibly not come in a box.
Yeah.
It's important to not come in a box.
Well, and when
honestly.
they know it doesn't come in a box, then they're resistant to it. Why? Taste buds have changed. They've changed.
Sure, walk around the grocery store and look at the grocery carts and see what people have in it. It's
But
insane.
I do it too. Look,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I'm all holy about this, but when your taste buds change and you start craving the bad foods, you know something's wrong.
Let me just make this point. I test zinc levels in my office, and zinc has a lot to do with your taste buds. When I get people's zinc back up to normal status, they start liking good food more. That's one of the reasons why we think we have to have all this processed stuff is because our taste buds aren't even functioning right. And it can be because of zinc.
Let's talk about one of the things you mentioned earlier about autoimmune, the gut basically, and low thyroid. We just talked about all the bad foods that come in a box today and fast food. All of that, 100% of it actually affects our gut in a negative way.
Sure.
When you go to the bathroom, you move your bowels, you should go to the bathroom within 30 to 40 seconds. Okay? And people say, what? I go in there, I read, I'm in there for an hour. Yeah, you got problems. Disease starts in the colon in many cases.
True.
So if you can't grasp that, you're in trouble. What does that do
Absolutely.
specifically, though, for this show for low thyroid?
Well, we know that as of current diagnosed people with low thyroid, 90% of them are autoimmune. And all this means is that their body is attacking something in the thyroid gland. That's not a good thing. We don't want our body to attack ourselves and destroy. Our immune system is supposed to attack viruses and bacteria and pathogens, things that are supposed to make us sick. So it's your body malfunctioning when it starts attacking your thyroid. That's Hashimoto's thyroid disease. Or your nerves, that's MS. Or lupus is where you attack some of your organs in your skin, and so on and so forth. Rheumatoid arthritis, you attack your joints. That's not a good thing when your body attacks itself. That's called autoimmunity. So as you said, autoimmunity starts in the gut. Those bad things have to be getting into your bloodstream somehow, and it's usually because your gut isn't healthy, and it allows things like undigested food particles to go seep through your gut into your bloodstream. Mm-hmm. Excess alcohol can cause
let's be
leaky
graphic
gut.
for a moment,
Yeah.
because I know what you're talking about. It's when we have these we talk about red blood cells being leaked into the bloodstream, and
Oh, they're already in the bloodstream.
no, not the bloodstream, not bloodstream. These undigested food particles.
Yeah.
When we talk about undigested food particles leaking into the bloodstream, we're literally talking about crap.
Yeah.
That's how you become toxic. Well, people say, well, I'm healthy. I'm not really fat. I feel good. I look good. But what's going on inside?
Yeah, let me make this point. This might make it easier, more clear for people. When you eat chicken, that chicken is a whole protein. It's a string of amino acids, a bunch of amino acids all linked together. Your stomach acid and your enzymes are supposed to break all that down into individual amino acids, and only those tiny individual amino acids are supposed to seep through the gut into the bloodstream.
Okay.
What happens when you have leaky gut is you get whole chicken protein going all the way into your bloodstream.
But that's not graphic enough. That doesn't mean anything to people.
Yeah.
You got to say crap gets into your bloodstream.
It does, yeah. Crap gets into your bloodstream. Food,
Yeah.
whole food, along with crap gets into your bloodstream.
Right, and the reason I say that is because when it gets down to that level, that's what it is now. It's that excrement. It's pieces of food also, but it's excrement as well going into your bloodstream.
True.
And that's there's a visual for you.
And-
It's
and
not
your body-
fun. It's disgusting, but it is what it is.
Your body doesn't know how to handle that. It's not the whole chicken and
Was
crap,
meant to-
as you said, is not supposed to be in your bloodstream.
Right.
It's supposed to be vitamins, minerals, amino acids, essential fats, and that's about it.
Is
And
this a
if-
good time to bring up? Oh my gosh, the probiotics.
Well, it is. That's a big piece of it. With autoimmunity, you have to restore normal immunity, and a lot of your immunity is based on the bacteria that are in the gut. So there's a place, there's a perfect time
That's
and
a part
place.
of the treatment.
Yeah, there's a perfect
Just
time and
probiotics.
place.
But isn't it good for
probiotics.
everybody to have all probiotics?
It is. I use probiotics for almost everybody, but sometimes we got to seal the lining of the gut.
Oh,
and
yeah.
probiotics
You
aren't
gotta fix
going
it
to be the
first,
greatest thing on that. I say, what's causing the gut lining to be broken down in the first place? And sometimes it's too much aspirin, too much, any of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Cortisol creams and
Let's not run over that.
things like
People,
that.
when you say non-steroidal anti-inflammatories with the NSAIDs,
Sorry.
that's Aleve, which is
Ibuprofen.
not naproxen is the active ingredient. You have ibuprofen, which you know is Advil. You have aspirin. All those things we know for a fact that if you take them for 3 consecutive days or longer, that you will begin to have leaky gut.
Right. It's the most common
Yeah.
cause of leaky gut.
You remember the stats? Boy, I wish someone was looking up these stats right now about how many deaths there are every single year from NSAIDs. Do you guys remember that?
It's huge. I know that the deaths from aspirin outweigh the benefits from preventing stroke and heart disease. I don't remember the number off the top of my head.
David,
but
if you have a way to look that up, NSAIDs, put in NAI. What is it? I'm dyslexic.
NSAIDs.
NS. There you go.
And I know Tylenol, which isn't a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, but it's the leading cause of liver failure in America.
Right. So put in deaths due to NSAIDs, Dave, and tell me the number if you could. We're going to go to commercial. We'll come back more with some more low thyroid conditions that you may not be aware of. If you're driving in your car, if you're working out today, if you're just listening at home, do you have low thyroid? What are some of the signs of it? And then what do you begin to do about it? We talked about probiotics, but how do you heal the gut? Dr. Jeremy Webster, Dr. Nicole Sharp. Coming up next, 727 Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. 734 Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. It is the holiday season, and I know that no one says, as a child, I can't wait to grow up and be fat. I can't wait to grow up and not have a job and be lazy and be on the street holding a sign. No one has intentions that are bad. However, our mind plays with us, and it allows us to do things we really don't want to do. During the holidays, no one says, I can't wait to have a great time with all these holiday parties I go to and gain 10 pounds between now and January 1st. And then say, I can't wait for January 1st so I can buy all the things on an infomercial and put them underneath my bed, let it collect dust and waste money and not lose anything but more than 5 pounds only to gain it back again.
Sure, a good stimulus, though, for the economy.
Yeah,
Right.
there's that. So what are you doing that contributes to your health? What are you doing that contributes to a thyroid condition that is specific to this show? One of the things we left you with is having a leaky gut, and that could be due to NSAIDs. It could be due to, and we'll tell you what that is again if you weren't listening earlier. It could be due to the type of diet you're on. We got the stats on people who take NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like aspirin or Aleve or ibuprofen.
Painkillers, basically.
And I say
Most of the
Aleve, I mean
painkillers.
naproxen, but go ahead. And that is?
Well, we found that 10 to 20,000 is the estimate. 16,500 is
Estimate of
a
what?
conservative estimate, and that's deaths. That's
People who die from taking...
confirmed
Right.
deaths. And as you said during the break, George, how many people really died because of complications of that are never attributed
Right.
to the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories? They just said, well, they died from gastric bleeding or something that was which resulted from taking too much aspirin.
And I think, you say, well, George, come on, 10 to 20,000 people, even if it's 50,000 people, by taking that is a small percentage out of the people in the United States. But if you look at it this way, if you're taking a supplement, a medication, or you're taking anything that you believe is going to help you, and you die from it or you have complications from it, don't you think it's important to look at another way to heal whatever's going on?
Right. And how many people, if there's 10 to 20,000 people dying, there's got to be 10 times that or 100 times that who are suffering some kind of consequence, a negative consequence due to that same drug, even if they never get to the point where they die because of that drug. And that's what the autoimmunity is all about. Take some aspirin, ruin your gut, and then you leak this chicken crap, as we said, into the bloodstream. Your body freaks out, starts to attack it, thinks it's a virus, and then it starts attacking everything that's similar to that, which could be your thyroid. And you attack your thyroid gland, and now your eyebrows are thinning, your hair is dry and brittle, you have no energy, and you start to gain weight. And you're fat.
Dr. Sharp, we talked about healing the gut very fast so we can move forward. There's a lot of information. What does it take to heal the gut? Or in the beginning stages, what do people begin to do today? What's the takeaway message for healing the gut right now?
First and foremost, you have to pay attention to what you're putting in your gut and eliminating the things such as gluten and dairy that are so inflammatory that create that leaky gut that help influence that in the first place. So eliminating those.
Well, hold on. How could you say get rid of dairy? Milk is good for you, Dr. Sharp. Don't you watch the commercials?
Yeah, and drink your milk. Absolutely. I hear that all the time, but taking that out of the diet, we have seen with our patients time and time again that just eliminating two of the main inflammatory things help so many different issues. A lot of skin issues you'll see.
And there's no sugar in milk.
Well, there is sugar in milk.
Come on,
There's
really?
Lactose.
How much sugar is in milk?
Sugar.
Are you serious? Really? Come on.
Lactose is sugar, so there's
you're not
absolutely
giving me
sugar
stats. I want you to tell me. Did you know that in a cup of milk there's about half or sometimes more the amount of, or sometimes the equal amount of sugar as a candy bar?
You know what's funny is that cheese and dairy is definitely on the Atkins plan.
Fatkins plan.
Yeah,
Get
the
it right.
Fatkins plan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So let's move forward about the brain. The brain and low thyroid. Well, you say, hold on. What has my brain got to do with low thyroid, Dr. Webster?
Well, the brain is what controls the thyroid. I like to teach people like this. The thyroid system, and it's not just the thyroid gland, it's a whole system of things that have to happen. The brain is like the thermostat. Let's say we're talking about an air conditioning system here. The brain's the thermostat. It controls, it says it's too hot or it's too cold. Do I need to pump more cold air or more hot air? And when the brain decides, okay, metabolism is too low, either your body temperature is too low or you're just not revving up your metabolism enough, the brain's what says, thyroid, do your job. The brain sends a signal to the thyroid and says, kind of snaps at it and says, thyroid, make thyroid hormone. That's the first step in the whole process that has to happen. Now, there are a lot of things that affect that. When you make enough thyroid hormone, your brain says, okay, I can calm down now and shut off, basically shut that system off. Because
but before you go further, when it says I can shut off, I know exactly what you're saying, but is part of that shutting off also not having the hamster wheel where you're going crazy, 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 crazy and having anxiety? Is any of that part of it?
It's not. It's a very isolated piece of the brain and the nervous system.
Go ahead.
But what you're getting at, I think I know where you're going with this, because there's another system, the adrenal system, which is kind of a parallel system. So if the adrenal system is producing enough cortisol or too much cortisol, the cortisol can shut off not only the cortisol pathway, but also the thyroid pathway.
How does this happen? Let's talk about, this is the holidays, Dr. Sharp. What is a scenario that might happen? Somebody's going to produce too much cortisol.
Well, especially us ladies, we go crazy about having to make sure that everything is, just like it's supposed to be. Buy all the presents, cook all the foods, get everything ready for the celebrations and stuff like that.
And
that increases
have the family
stress.
accept what you've done correctly because you're not the kid anymore.
Right.
Yeah, how many people they during the holidays it's supposed to be a time of, isn't it like supposed to be a time of family and friends?
It's kind of turned into just a huge rat race.
It is. People stress about it a lot more, and people end up being more miserable during the holidays, and it should be the exact opposite.
Right.
We should just enjoy family and
so during
and
that
feel
time,
good.
You're producing more cortisol, which means not only can you put on more fat and contribute to low thyroid issues just due to the stress.
Just due to the cortisol.
Just due to this cortisol, okay? But add in the bad foods, add in the extra alcohol, and add in not sleeping.
And,
You're a
and
fat
stress
ass.
is a big part of leaky gut as well. I definitely want to
Sure is.
throw that
I know
in there.
that. But how do we, so you just said the great way to eliminate it is to take away two of the inflammatory mechanisms, which is dairy
And gluten. And gluten is really important with the Hashimoto's autoimmune thyroiditis as well.
I'm not going to get into this, but I'm going to mention it because I had a couple of experts on the show. One of them who talked about celiac disease. Remember, she was on the show.
Yeah, it was great.
You were on also. And basically, what people were saying now is that the only people who are affected by gluten are the people who have a genetic disposition to be affected by it if they had a lot of gluten.
Like celiac disease?
Celiac disease. But
Yeah.
people who don't have the gene, the expression that would be turned on by having gluten, don't necessarily have to stay away from it. And a couple of people have said that. I don't want to get into that right now. We'll just leave it as it is because I agree with you guys, but I have nothing to go on. Only know that when you take gluten out of someone's diet, even if they don't have that gene expression, they tend to feel better. Let's leave it there for now, but let's move forward because this is really important. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, we were talking about cortisol.
Right.
And, when you're in the holidays, what happens is you create stress. It's not how our bodies are really designed. Stress is a survival mechanism.
Right.
And none of the stuff that we do during the holidays has anything to do with surviving. It has to do with other types of stress. Unfortunately, our bodies behave exactly the same. Cortisol goes up. Brain says, okay, I can shut down that system. I can shut down the cortisol system. Unfortunately, the thyroid system also shuts down. And then you end up with all of the same symptoms of low thyroid. These are the people who, when their doctor tests them, it looks like, well, you're not making thyroid hormone very well, but your thyroid gland seems to be working all right. It's kind of a weird thing. It's like something's just shutting it off, even though there's no damage to the gland. But it's actually still true hypothyroid. They're not making enough thyroid hormone. But you get the cortisol or the stress under control, and then the thyroid system turns back on. So it's real important to check the adrenals when you're having all of the symptoms. Can you just throw out some of the basic symptoms that we talked about?
Weight loss resistance is one of them. Weight gain and then weight loss resistance.
Now, hold on. Before you go forward, you talk about weight. This is one of the things that irks me in this industry. I hate when someone says a weight loss program or weight gain. It irks me because you gain and lose weight throughout the day, every single day of your life. Fat gain.
Yeah, you're right.
Fat.
Sorry, fat
Some
gain.
people are over fat. They're not overweight. I'm considered overweight. I'm healthy. Over fat. It's fat gain.
You're right.
So let's get that into people's heads right. You can have a model who's skinny as can be, but she is fat. And we've got to make sure we educate people properly, right?
True. Yeah, and it is
resistance to losing fat, and then what else?
The brittle hair, the constipation, the high blood
eyebrows, all that.
cholesterol.
Yeah.
You'll get all that, even if the problem is the cortisol being the issue, and the thyroid gland itself might be perfectly healthy.
All right, so now we've discussed some of the things that actually can exacerbate a condition. We've discussed those same things that can create the condition. Mm-hmm. Is there a particular age this can begin in a person and or gender?
No. We see it.
We see more in females.
We see more in females, and I don't really know why. I honestly
think because females are right-brained, high cortisol.
Yeah, I was going to say more stress. They take
emotional stress.
Right.
I definitely think that's
so
part of it.
Here's what we need to do in the last segment coming up. We need to do everything instead of explaining more, because I know the show can go further. We have more stuff to talk about. Let's explain what needs to be done. Dr. Sharp talked about taking out two of the inflammatory issues.
To help with the gut.
To help with the gut. But what else can someone do? What if they can't afford a test?
Sure.
What if they just can't afford it? What can someone do today? Some of the supplements they must have and some of the things they must take out. And when will they see a difference?
Yeah, let's talk about how to get them through this holiday season.
When will they see a difference and get through the holiday season? I love that. 745 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. 751 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. George DeJohn, Train Station Fitness Show. I want to apologize right now, and I don't often do this, but I have to. I already knew with Dr. Webster how much information we had to get out in this show, and it's really important for people to know what they may not know and how to help their health. And I talked extraordinarily fast. I had a lot of passion like I used to and still do. And I hope I didn't turn people off. I'm trying to invite you in because this is a topic that really affects so many people. And I just got an email from someone saying, George, my doctor told me to take ibuprofen in the morning and aspirin at night as a preventative measure. I would say leave your doctor immediately and find someone who does integrative medicine, another medical doctor who understands how to help you in a preventative measure way, because doctors were not taught preventative measures. Although I got an email last week, I forgot to tell you both, that from a doctor, from a guy who's going through his medical school rather, that they're actually teaching nutrition now in some of the schools.
I've heard that.
Yeah. And they're really getting on board. So we might be 5, 6, 7, 10 years out before we get the information we need.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the brain, cortisol, alcohol, stress, all that stuff contributing to low thyroid issues. And you've said it's more prevalent in women. Move forward and get as much information out as you can. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay, something we need to discuss especially since it's during the holidays. We all, maybe not all, but most of us get invited to a lot of parties, a lot of wine parties, just pre-holiday parties. Yeah, so you're going to be more susceptible to go out and maybe have a few drinks. So let's talk. Alcohol causes some of that same stuff. It's one of the other contributors to leaky gut. Not quite as bad as taking the NSAIDs. Right. Not quite as bad as gluten, but it certainly is a contributing factor, especially if you drink a lot of it. But alcohol does some other things. We know alcohol.
Well, what is a lot of it? I mean, we're talking about a lot all in one night? Well, or are we talking about several days a week?
I want to hit it from the point of the liver, because there's a whole nother way the liver plays into this thyroid. Once your thyroid makes enough hormone, it has to be converted in the liver before it even does anything. So if you've got a bad liver because too much alcohol, even though your thyroid might be healthy, the thyroid hormone never does anything in your cells. It never gets activated. So it's crucial not to damage your liver with too much alcohol. Your liver can handle 1 to 2 drinks without having any damage whatsoever. Beyond that, alcohol becomes a poison.
Let's also just add this, and I don't want to interrupt, but I have to. There's a good friend of mine who's looking into the whole liver issue today in America. Many more millions of people than the thyroid condition, where you have 27 million people. Okay, many more millions, I don't have the number in my head, have liver conditions, and they're not aware of it.
Absolutely.
So if you're not aware of having a liver condition, and most Americans have liver conditions, and you contribute to it, then you wonder why it shows up in these symptoms. Go ahead.
And then you get all the symptoms of low thyroid because you can't activate your thyroid hormone.
So what else?
That's called functional low thyroid.
Right.
It's not going to show up on your medical doctor's basic TSH, T4 test, but it is going to show up on some of these functional tests looking at other things. Alcohol also increases your estrogen production. Estrogen, when it goes up, it causes this stuff to be produced in your blood that globs onto your thyroid hormone. If it's globbed onto, it can't do anything in your cells. It can't make your muscle cells or your heart cells or your brain cells rev up or increase your metabolism. So you still have all of the symptoms. You have weight gain, thin, dry hair,
and
constipation,
let's also add to that.
It's fat gain.
Let's also add to that. And I want to say this confidently, because I know from my years when I used to train. You will still have all of those symptoms, even if you exercise.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, how many people say, well, I ate this way or drank this way, I'll compensate with exercise? Bull crap. Ain't happening, can't happen. Never.
And here's a real important thing.
They think it's compensating.
If you damage yourself enough till you get to the point where you have autoimmune thyroid disease, you always have autoimmune thyroid disease. You can shut it down, shut it off, and make your life
kind of dormant.
You can make your life completely normal, but as soon as you go back to living wrong, that autoimmunity is going to express itself again. So you don't want to get to that point.
So I asked you this earlier. How many drinks, or is it per day or per week? And you blanketed it by saying 2.
1 to 2.
Okay.
1 to 2 for the liver.
Now, is that 2 every single night?
Yes.
Is that really?
For the liver. For the liver.
Okay.
That's our liver can process that.
Does it affect cortisol?
Yeah, it affects cortisol and it affects the gut.
But people say, hold on, when I drink, I feel more relaxed, I feel calm.
It's the opposite of that. It's actually a stressor. It makes your brain shut down because it's such an excitatory stimulant to the brain. Your brain has to shut down as a response to alcohol.
I didn't know that.
But just because your liver can process 1 to 2 and without being damaged doesn't mean your gut can necessarily tolerate that, because if you're taking aspirin and gluten and dairy and throwing 1 drink, that might be enough to put you over the edge. I don't know. Everybody's different. If you're not doing aspirin and dairy and gluten, you might be able to handle 2 or 3 drinks. It's just personal.
Dr. Sharp, we're at a party right now. We walk into a party together, and you see all this food on a table. You see the meat, the salad, you see the cookies, and you see bread and all this stuff. What has gluten in it on the table?
The cookies will have it. Anything with like a flour, the bread will have it in there. You won't find it in proteins or meats and salads and stuff like that. But any type of bread item, pasta will have gluten in it.
The rolls, the stuffing,
Yeah.
you know, all the things that we like to pig out on.
Okay.
Cookies, cakes.
All that. Ricky, there's not a seat, but there's a seat over here. You want to sit over here? Sit over here and talk with us, because I know I got to hear about your Turkey Day stuff.
Can we throw out our phone number real quick?
Yeah, please do. 972-735-0707 is Dr. Webster and Dr. Sharp. You can get them. 972.
Call us and just get the basic testing, so we know if we need to take measures to prevent this stuff from happening.
972-735-0707.